Well, hello, everybody. Today is Tuesday, the 12th, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's snowy and wintry here in Kentucky. This is one of the worst winters since I've moved here, but such is life. So, anyways, we will be doing another cooking video tomorrow. I just wanted to do a quick health related video to kind of build on yesterday's vagal nerve. And that might have been something new to all of you, and you're kind of probably wondering, like, where did that come from? And it's because what I have realized in my own health is that it's real easy to hit walls, right? You fix your diet, you're exercising, you might even be counting calories, and yet you're not seeing the results that you want. And you're being very cognitive of everything, and yet nothing's changing. I think that's very discouraging. It's very frustrating. Or maybe you're doing everything you can to be healthy and you're still getting sick all the time. Or you've heard if I do XYZ, I can get rid of chronic inflammation, pain, you know, diabetes, hypertension, and yet things aren't getting fixed. There's a lot of different scenarios, and I think the older we get, the more likely that's going to be the case, although it can certainly happen to young people. And so it's happened to me. And in that process, it's a chance to go re examine what I know, go do research, see what's going on, and then use myself as a human guinea pig. Okay. And so, I'm a firm believer in intermittent fasting. I think that every single person benefits from it. The reason I think so is because I think that's how our bodies were designed. We were designed to be hunters and gatherers. We were designed to have periods of no eating and periods of feasting. We were designed to be able to sleep and not have our blood sugars bottom out. And in our modern world, with an abundance of food and some really wrong teachings, we have grown accustomed to eating multiple meals a day, eating late into the evening, getting that first thing in the morning and eating something, especially something sugary or high in carbs. And in the process, we have totally whacked out our system on a hormonal level. And in that process, we have become insulin resistant. Therefore, our insulin levels are chronically high, which is causing chronic inflammation, which is causing chronic disease. And we get into this really terrible negative feedback loop. And then you add chronic stress. We have stress from the moment we wake up until the moment we go to bed, and sometimes even in the middle of the night. You're reading stressful things in the news. You go to work, there's stress there. There's stress on the highway getting to work. There's stress on the highway getting back. You have a limited lunchtime. You got to get lunch. There's a line. There's a this. There's a that. Everything is stress, 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 stress. If you have kids, it's a constant go, 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 go. And often in most of our families, or many of them, there's a lot of activities you got to get the kids to, and you're trying to balance that with work and with feeding your family and cleaning the house and doing everything. And by the end of the day, you're just exhausted. I mean, just saying this makes me exhausted. Okay, so what we have done is now we have our insulin up and now we have our cortisol up. And we're not doing anything to rebalance that. We're not helping our bodies adjust to these stressors. Then let's say that you've had a chronic life situation. Maybe you suffered PTSD. Maybe you were in an abusive relationship. Maybe you've been through really hard financial times. Maybe you lost a loved one recently that that was you were very close to. Maybe you have somebody struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction. Maybe you're struggling with a drug or alcohol addiction. There's a million chronic stressors out there that are, or I should say acute stressors that are traumatic. Okay. And what our bodies do is they have learned to take those traumas and store them in various parts of our bodies, in different muscles and different joints and different tissue. And that can lead to chronic knee pain, chronic shoulder pain, arrhythmias, all sorts of different health problems that it's really hard for a healthcare professional to diagnose because there wasn't necessarily a cause and effect that's visible. You didn't fall and hurt your shoulder, and now you know that's why your shoulder's hurting. all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, something just gets wrong. Maybe your lower back has never been a problem, and all of a sudden, boom, it's a problem, and you can't get it healed. A lot of that has to do with that trauma response and our parasympathetic nervous system, which we talked about some yesterday with the vagal nerve, because it is one of the primary nerves in our body. It's the biggest nerve in our body. It travels throughout the whole body. It is a direct communicator from the brain to the heart, to the brain to the lungs, brain to the digestive tract. And much of our health actually originates in our digestive tract. Okay. The same tissue that formed your brain was the same tissue that formed your intestines. Okay. So when one is out of whack, the other one tends to. So I'm going to see if I can do this here. I did a whiteboard up and I just want to look at it and just kind of talk about the pillars of health. Okay. So what I have found, and I learned this the hard way, is that our spiritual health, our relationship with God, is all important. Without it, the others just really are always in a struggle, always in a coming from behind state. So, as you know, I highly encourage you to make God a foundation in your health. So, and it's for wellness, it's for centering, it's for stress reduction, it's for healing. He's a master physician, okay? This Holy Spirit is your counselor. He's your leader. He educates you, he teaches you. And scripture tells us the end before the beginning so that we know what's going to happen, so we're not taken off guard. So when things happen, you know that it's God, okay? Jesus already paid for all of our sins, so we don't have to worry about that. It's all paid for. It's done. All we have to do is say, yes, Jesus, I believe you lived, died, and rose again, and you're my Savior. And obviously, you have to admit you're a sinner, otherwise, you don't need a Savior. So when you do that, it takes all that burden off of you. And He says, take my yoke, for I am lowly and my burden is light, and He'll take your yoke, which is heavy. Let Him do that for you. It relieves all of this weight off of you. Okay, so that's number one. And it's not just a one-time thing. You really need to incorporate it into your life. That's why I stress reading or listening to the Bible daily, doing a devotional, making time for prayer. And prayer isn't anything magical, it's just talking to God. And we're invited to call God the Father Abba, which means daddy. He wants us to have that intimate relationship with Him and go to Him with everything. And Jesus is our lawyer, our counselor in the courts. So when the accuser, Satan, comes and says that we did this, that, or the other, Jesus is there to go to bat for us. And when we stand before God, we're wearing Jesus's white, perfect cloak. And so all God sees is that perfection of Jesus and says, well, this person didn't do that. All I see is perfection. So without that, then all he sees is our dirty rags. He sees every sin. He hasn't been able to forgive us because that's not how that covenant works. And so, therefore, if we're based on works, we're always going to fall short because none of us are perfect. Okay. And we can't be perfect until we get our new resurrected bodies. Okay. So, spiritual is by far the number one pillar that you need. Then the second I would say is your diet, okay? And I've broken it down into two things: macros, which is protein, fat, carbohydrates, and fiber. And when I look at carbohydrates, I am talking about starches, okay? I'm talking about sugars. I'm talking about things like rice, pasta, um, wheat, um, anything that breaks down into a sugar. And then vegetables, I'm putting more in the fiber category, okay? A whole fruit is going to fall under carb, but it does have fiber in it, so it reduces it and it kind of falls into a different category. But it still would fall under carbs. Fats, there's good fats, which are your saturated fats. And all that means is when you look at that fat molecule, every connection point on it is saturated. It's connected. It can't interact with anything. Then you have unsaturated and polyunsaturated. And those mean that those connection points on unsaturated, none of those are have anything connected to it. So they're very reactive. And then your polyunsaturated have some connections and some not. And then the worst fats are your trans fats. And that's because they're just inflammatory in nature and they really don't have a good physiological thing in their um, composition that makes them good. So, and those seed oils that I'm always talking bad about, they're trans fats. Okay. And they're trans fats because they have been processed at such a level that they are inflammatory, but they don't go rancid. So they've been put into all of our foods, but they were originally designed as machine lubricants. And when World War II ended, there were all of these factories making seed oils, and now there wasn't a need for them. And so, somebody got bright and thought, well, we'll just put them in food. And the FDA allowed it. And here we are with all sorts of illnesses related to them. Margarine is one of those, Crisco is one of them, cotton oil, um, whatever they call vegetable oil. They're all seed oils and they're really, really bad for you. So the oils you want are natural fats from, like that come from animals, butter and milk and cheese and lard, and then avocado and coconuts have a natural fat that is a um, medium chain MCT triglyceride, and those are really, really good for us. So you can eat all the avocados you want. You can eat all the coconut fat you want. Um, and then you have olive oil and avocado oil, and those are really good for you as long as they're cold pressed. If any of these things have been um, processed under heat, it's going to change their composition, and those poly saturated fats are going to flip and they're going to turn into trans fats. So it's important that you don't just look at something and go, oh, that's always good. You also have to kind of investigate, is it cold pressed? Okay. So fats are really, really important. And one of the fats that's super important is omega 3s, and those come from fish oils, but really they're coming from the algae that the fish eat. So that's why when you get salmon, you want to eat a wild salmon because they're eating the algae. If you get a farm salmon, there's usually no algae in those pens because they're so heavily concentrated. And so you're getting minimal, if any, omega 3s from them. And so, and again, even if you're eating salmon frequently, unless you're eating it every single day, you're probably not getting enough omega 3s because the omega 6s, which come from the seed oils, are so prevalent in our diet that we're still out of balance. So I'm not a big supplement person, but I do think there's several supplements that are very, very beneficial. One is omega 3s. One is magnesium because 85% of the world's population is deficient in magnesium, and vitamin D because, again, probably 85 to 95% of the world's population is deficient in vitamin D because we're not getting enough sun. So, those three supplements I would highly encourage you add to your diet. Now, so that's fats. We've talked about carbs. Fiber is your vegetables, and even the insoluble fiber, when it gets down into the colon, is feeding that microbiome that I'm always talking about. And that microbiome, they have there's more microbes in our gut than we have cells in our whole body. And they have what's called mitochondria. And those mitochondria are the workhorses of our body. They do all the work and they produce our energy, ATP. And so if they're not getting fed, then they're not going to work very hard. Okay, so we got to keep giving them fiber and things like that, and that comes from our vegetables. And then the proteins, of course, are things that come from meat, that come through our dairy products, that come You can get, seeds and nuts, and soy, things like tofu. But again, I'm very, very cautious of tofu because I want to say it's 80 or 85% of the soy that's grown in the United States is GMO and it's sprayed with glyphosate. And you're not going to get that glyphosate out of it because it's sprayed to kill the plant all at the same time so that it's maturing at the same time to make harvest easier. The same is true with wheat. So I would encourage you, it's going to be a little more expensive, but look for small mills like Janie's Mill, and there's some other ones that are not spraying their crops with glyphosate. Try and go back to heirloom, like Einhart wheat. That's an old grain that's not GMO modified, that's been around for thousands of years. I mean, going back to biblical times, there's other ones too. But or einkorn, when you go back to it, these older grains, you're going to find that gluten intolerance goes away. When you get away from these chemicals, you're going to find that and when you can, I would encourage you to mill your own flour from the wheat berries. Then you're getting the whole grain, and you are, and all of those nutrients that are in the shell part of it. The problem that you're going to find is that you can only mill a small amount at a time or it goes rancid. And rancidity is because there is some fats in those berries. And the berry, they just look like little seeds, and that's actually what they are. I mean, you can throw them out and grow wheat from them. But it's when they're oxidated. Okay. So if you keep them around very long, they're not going to taste good. So it's ideal that you mill them right as you're going to bake bread or muffins or whatever you're going to bake. But so that's your kind of proteins, fats, carbs, and fiber. You want a predominance of your diet to be proteins, fats, and fiber, and very little of the sugary carbs. Why? Because that's going to push up those insulin levels again. Now, another thing on diet that is rarely talked about, and this is not my finding, Jessie, I can't say her last name, it's French, but she goes by Glucose Goddess. I would highly encourage you to look her up and follow her. She's a micro chemist that has done a great deal of work on glucose and insulin and its effect on mental health and physical health. And she is found through her research and just scouring through many, many research projects and things that the order that we eat our food has as much to do as with our health as what we eat. Okay. So, like for example, she found that if you do a vegetable starter before you eat a high carbohydrate meal, like let's say pasta, you can reduce your glucose surge and therefore your insulin surge by up to 75%. Well, there's no drug out there that can do that. You're not changing. In fact, you're eating more, you're not eating less often. So start your dinner with a salad. Start, with some hors d'oeuvres like carrot sticks or broccoli or whatever you enjoy. But having that intake of fibrous vegetables before you eat your starchy meal can reduce the impact on your blood glucose and your blood insulin by up to 75%. Another hack she came up with that's super easy that we all can do is a tablespoon of vinegar in some water before you eat. That can reduce your spike by 30 to 40%. So you start putting these hacks together and you can see that you can really level things out. Well, what does that do? That reduces your inflammation. And in that process, your body is just happier and it's functioning better, and your body can start healing itself. Okay, so those are just two hacks. Another one is to dress your carbs. So if you're going to eat something sweeter, or you're going to have some toast, put something like guacamole on it or a nut butter. Why? Because putting that fat with the carb again helps reduce that spike. And our whole goal is to level it out and keep it level and avoid these ups and downs. Okay, so let's go on to exercise now. And what I was doing yesterday with you with the vagal nerve ideas were some exercises. Did they take any effort? No. I mean, they're things we do every day: yawning, gargling, humming, singing. Um, they're things that are really easy to do. They don't, they don't take any effort, but they're realigning our nervous system. They're getting that parasympathetic nerve to get stimulated and getting us out of that sympathetic state, which is a high cortisol state, which is our fight or flight. And I would say a majority of us adults are in a chronic fight or flight all the time. And what happens when we're there is our insulin is also up. And our body's telling us to store everything. We're running from a tiger. We're in threat mode. So we can't lose weight. We have trouble sleeping. We're irritable. And everything is just harder. We're stiffer, so we're more prone to injury. We lose flexibility. We even lose balance, and I would say to our coordination to some degree. Okay, so what we want to do is not only exercise for strength, which would be like weight training or resistance training. Cardio is important, but what they're finding is that things like sprinting as hard as you can for 30 seconds has far more benefit in reducing visceral fat and giving you cardiac health than long distance running. Okay. Walking is a good cardio. Again, most of us adults are probably walking around with a heart rate that's 20 to 30 beats higher than it should be. And when we're doing these parasympathetic exercises, we're reducing our heart rate, we're reducing our blood pressure, and we're bringing our baseline of everything down. And what that does is it gives us longevity. It brings us vitality back. It brings us youthfulness back. And it will help prevent injuries. And it also might get rid of some of those chronic pains that we have, because there's quite a bit of research out there that's showing that people that have gone through PTSD, that have had trauma in their life, will have physical ailments secondary to that. And it might not be easy to correlate. Maybe you have knee pain that you just can't figure out. Well, maybe it's from a trauma 5 years ago. We store all that tension in our body, and it eventually breaks down collagen and the cartilage, and tightens everything, and we lose a lot of the fluidity of our body through it. So we need to be doing these parasympathetic exercises so that we get back in balance and we can release those toxins that may not be easily identified but are causing us discomfort and pain. Okay. Then, and flexibility, again, anybody that's older knows that you lose flexibility, things get stiffer. You wake up in the morning, you can barely walk. If you have any kind of inflammatory or autoimmune disease, you really know this. And use it or lose it is kind of the name of the game here. And so I would highly encourage you to do flexibility exercises when you wake up in the morning, before you go to bed, to relax so you sleep better. Something that is helpful here is that magnesium I was talking about, because it has a way of relaxing some of that tension so that we can get more out of our flexibility. And again, breathing and learning to know your body and what's normal and what's not. And I'm not a fan of yoga from the mindlessness, as I've told you, but I do think that they have done a very good job of using the breathing to get familiar with your own body, what's normal, what's not normal, and start to realize when you're really expanding your chest, when you're standing straight, when you're engaging your core. I think most of us walk around not even knowing what that feels like or means. And so that self-awareness, I don't think, is a bad thing. What you don't want to do is get so focused on that you forget about everything else. It's just a tool in your toolbox, okay? All of these are tools. Don't obsess on any of them, but know that they're there to help you, okay? So then balance is another thing. I think, when we're kids, we're walking along curbs and we're standing on one foot and we're standing on another. And we often stop doing that as adults. And then pretty soon you find you can't even stand on one foot. You can't hardly put your pants on, without sitting down anymore. Well, that balance is going to protect you from falls. It's going to help you recover if you do get injured. And it's just going to be, it's really important again in life, right? We need balance of everything. We need balance of stress to relaxation. We need balance in our body. We need to know when we're favoring one side or the other because again, we're setting ourselves up for injury. So sleep. Sleep is critical and 6 to 8 hours minimum. Some people need 9 or 10. And what's happening when we're sleeping is that's when our body is cleansing itself of toxins. That's when it's rebuilding. That's when it's regenerating. And that's when we actually get rest. Okay. So, that rest and digest is the parasympathetic. It's a time that we really get into a parasympathetic state. If we're not getting that, then again, we're constantly in a sympathetic fight or flight state, and that just leads to disease. Then relaxation, okay? Again, that kind of falls into sleep, but it also needs to happen during the day. We need to take time. Let's say that you just got cut off by somebody and you're just raging, right? That's a time to start singing or humming or doing something to, again, get your parasympathetic on board and decrease that sympathetic response. So you need some de-stressing tools in your toolbox that you can do anywhere, anytime that will help you find that balance. Relaxation helps us reduce injuries. It eliminates that stored trauma, like we were talking about. It balances our mental and emotional health. Um, Another thing you can do, let's say that you're at work and somebody comes into your office and just really gets you irate. If you can go and walk for a while, that also decreases your cortisol. So add that to your toolbox on ways of reducing cortisol. And throughout the day, you need to be thinking, do I need to reduce my cortisol? Do I need to reduce my cortisol? Um, on exercise, when's the best time to exercise? First thing in the morning is one of the best times, but another time is right after you eat. Why? Because if you go into exercise like walking or dancing or something for 10 to 15 minutes after you eat, your body's not going to want to store those sugars. It's going to want to burn it because it's already easily, readily available. And what you're trying to do is reduce what's stored so that you can now access what's stored and start getting rid of that excess. Okay. Um, Again, another reason why intermittent fasting is really important because when we intermittent fast, we're getting our body to go to the storeroom, right? To go to the pantry and start using up some of that stored stuff. It's also going to clean out all the dead cells. It's going to clean out all the cells that aren't um, that might be precancerous. It's going to get rid of toxins, plastics, and heavy metals and all of that, right? If we excess hormones, um, if we don't get rid of those, then they just cause disease. So we got to periodically do some spring cleaning. Now, what intermittent fasting looks like is different for everybody. For some people, going 10 hours of fasting is all they can handle. For me, that doesn't even seem like a fast. For me, I don't really feel like I'm fasting till I'm over 24 or 36 hours. Actually, it's more like 36 because by the time I hit 24, it's time to go to sleep. But I've lived my life that way, not on purpose. I didn't even know about intermittent fasting. I was just a go, 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 go girl. I was a single mom. I was going to school. I was going to graduate school. I was in the military. I was running businesses. I had ranches. I was training horses. And it was just like that was life. Okay, so one thing I realized that during that time, one of the reasons I was really lean was because I was intermittent fasting. I did a lot of stress reduction that I didn't even know about with all my time with my animals. I sang in the car. I my dad was a hummer and whistler, so I kind of picked that up. So I was de-stressing and engaging my parasympathetic all the time without even really knowing it. As I got older and I was doing less of that, but I was still stressed, my sympathetic was creeping up and the weight was starting to creep on. And what I realize, especially now, is I did that 4 day fast and I really should have seen a difference and nothing really changed even a week or two later. And I was like, okay, this isn't good. I was still having trouble sleeping. I'm like, this isn't good. I really need to attack this and I need to really, really focus on engaging my parasympathetic. So I've been doing that for the last week to 10 days. And sure enough, I don't weigh myself, I don't have a scale, but I go by body image and waist circumference because there is a direct correlation between waist circumference and visceral fat and longevity. I finally lost an inch around my waist. Now, I still have a long way to go to my goal. That's maybe 15-20% of the way. But I felt like I got over that roadblock, okay? And I wanted to share that with you because I know I'm not alone and I know how frustrating it is. It's like, well, I'm doing everything right, you know? I mean, I've heard that a lot in my practice, and I think sometimes God lets things happen to me so that I can really, really appreciate what people are doing and that they really are trying, and that there might be a piece of the puzzle that we're missing. The other thing that I'm starting to incorporate is after I eat, I'm just going to be doing some Zumba dance type of exercise. Why? To get my body moving. Spring is really close. We're 3 weeks away. We're going to see daylight savings time soon, and the days are really going to get longer. But right now, here in Kentucky, at least, it's still winter. It's still nasty. We're having that toxic fog out there. No one really knows what's going on, but I would not put it past it to have harmful things for us, including diseases. Um, that it There's lots of reports of it killing birds and pets and people getting sick right after being in it, and it's not isolated to one or two places. I mean, these reports are coming from all over the country. So I don't really see a need to be out in it, which means that my goal of walking is kind of put on a back burner. But I still need to move my body, right? So I thought, well, why not dance, right? It's kind of goes along with singing and humming. It's a feel good. It's a relaxation. It's a working on my balance. It's working on flexibility. It's working on lightening the load and just enjoying life, right? And it makes me think of King David dancing in the street as he worshiped the Lord. And so I'm going to start adding that after meals because I really, really, really want to see a healthy change. Why? This is my temple, okay? This is God gave me a beautiful gift in eternity, and I should take care of the gift He gave me, which is this temporary tent or temple. And I want to feel better. And I will say, since I started doing this, I've slept good for like 3 nights in a row, which I can't remember the last time I slept good in 3 nights in a row. And I lost that. I'm seeing change in my body. So, um, I've before I was adding, I told you I got some dumbbells, and I'm just doing those every time I walk by them. I'm doing different reps, targeting really my back, waist, and upper body, obviously with dumbbells. And then I'm also doing a somatic exercise routine to basically just de-stress my body, and that again is another parasympathetic. And I'm seeing improvement in my knees; they're not hurting near as much. I don't have the bounce back yet in my ligaments and tendons, but I think it's going to come. And I'd rather whittle away at this, okay, than not do anything. I already had done the dietary changes and continue to, and I'm going to help you with those. But I think you'll find if you do a multi-pillar approach, right? A two-legged stool doesn't stand, and a three-legged stool is usually wobbly, right? So the more you have on the ground, the more stable you are, right? If you have a really long table, you add a couple legs so that it's not wobbly, right? And so it doesn't break. Well, it's the same with our body. We want to have as many pillars of support as possible, with the primary being the Lord, then diet, sleep, exercise, and relaxation. And don't forget relationships, right? Your family, your friends, your church group, because those are chances to get out of yourself and help others, to laugh, to do things that will help bring that parasympathetic up. So I should have added that to that. They're very important, okay? And that's all I'm going to go through today. I really love you all, and I want to see everybody healthy and happy. And if I can find little hacks to help you get there, that's really my goal. And tomorrow we'll do another cooking video. I think seafood is what I'm kind of leaning towards, either salmon or prawns, but we'll kind of see when I get up what I feel like. Neither of those take very long to thaw out, and we'll come up with something really fun and tasty and healthy. And so I love you all. Please like, share, subscribe, leave comments. If you have questions, if you've hit roadblocks and you're looking for answers, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them. If I don't have the answer, I'll do the research for it because I like to grow and learn and I want to help y'all. And with that, have a very blessed day. As far as politics, same old, same old. Trump is a train out there, just like a wrecking ball. And, I think they're well over $1 trillion of savings right now, and it might even be closer to 2 trillion. We may be looking at a balanced budget for the first time in years. And there's going to be a lot of upheaval. Remember, the closer you get to good, the more the devil gets strong in your face, okay? Um, don't be surprised if, he tries to hit you with a disease or if he hits you with a sickness. My advice, I think I went through this before. If you're going out to a public place, take some zinc, take some quercetin, and vitamin C and vitamin D, okay? Front load yourself so your body has what it takes. So if a virus gets in, your body already has the building blocks to fight it. Drink lots of fluid, make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. You might want to continue that regime for, a day or two afterwards as well. But it's much easier to prevent it than to try and tackle it after the fact. And I can tell you, at least for me and the people that I've suggested that to, it's worked. No one in my immediate circle has gotten sick in a long, 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 long time. And for me, it's well over 20 years. So, and I'm not anybody special, right? I'm an old lady that has messed up on her diet and exercise and everything, just like everybody else. Okay. And I have had more than my share of stressors. And I've still managed to get through them without getting all these coughs and jabby jabs and all of that. Um, so it's sure worth a try. There's no risk in it. They're just nutrients that should be in your diet anyways. I don't recommend doing them every single day because you can get toxic on zinc if you take too much of it, and it can get your mineral balance out of whack. But for a day or two, giving your body a little extra to fight off, Zicam works really well. Just make sure you add some quercetin in because I don't believe most Zicams have it in it. And it is the key that opens the door. So, you can have all the zinc you want floating around, but if it can't get into the cell, it's not going to stop that replication. And, you know, drink fluids, um, consider some green tea, high in antioxidants, consider some ashwagandha, right? And chaga tea. They make a butterscotch. It's really good. There's a chocolate tea that's really good, and again, high in antioxidants and polyphenols. So there's wonderful ways of getting fluid into you. It doesn't always have to just be water. If you're drinking water, consider adding some electrolytes to it, something like Element or Relight. There's several of them. Just make sure there's no added sugar in them. But that will get the minerals that you need into your body. And most of them add some flavor to the water so that it's easier to get more into your system. Um, and take care of yourself. Have fun. Love one another. Love life. Today is the day the Lord has made. We should rejoice and be glad in it. And I'll tell you, a lot of the somatic exercises involve putting your hands up and looking up to the sky. And it just, every time I do it, I think, thank you, Father. Thank you, Jesus. And when we worship, what are we doing? We're opening up our chest. We're opening up our lungs. We're freeing up our shoulder blades. We're looking up and we're reducing tension in our neck. So a lot of these things seem like, well, they're crazy, but they're not crazy because there's so many health benefits behind them. And if there's a health benefit, anything that is good, anything that is wonderful, anything that is beautiful, that's all from God. If it's chaos, if it's evil, if it doesn't make any sense, then that's from the adversary. Satan. Satan means adversary, okay? So meditate on those things that are good, that are beautiful, that are wonderful, which are of God. The light, okay? Light and dark cannot inhabit the same space, so stay in the light. And I promise you, the more you do that, the more it becomes second nature, the more you'll be at peace. And the more you're at peace, the more you'll be healthy. And the more you're healthy, the more your body's going to look like you want it to, and it's going to feel like you want it to. Okay? So, love you. Have a wonderful day. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I will see you tomorrow in the kitchen cooking up something yummy. Okay? Bye bye.